I got laid off from my corporate job, my first corporate job, about 6 months ago. I want to say like maybe 4 or 5 months prior to that. They let us know that there would be layoffs, but never mentioned exactly when that was happening. We were very strategic with this entire process. And then it finally happened at the end of February. And now, today, they announced that they would be laying off 900 people tomorrow. I don't know what's worse, like working for months knowing that you could potentially not have a job, or like finding out today that tomorrow you could potentially not have a job. While the CEO is working from his remote office where he lives in Southern California. This company is such a joke, and I feel so bad for my old coworkers who are still there that are probably spiraling out of control right now because they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But that just goes to show that your company, the company that you work for, doesn't give a shit about you. You're disposable. So make sure you are prioritizing yourself and like not giving all of you to a company who could easily just get rid of you the next day.
Coca-Cola CEO says it may ramp up use of plastic bottles and raise prices due to President Trump's 25% tariff on aluminum.
Clearly, we're not out of the woods yet, but we focus very much. I mean, a year ago, we sat down and said, we want to emerge stronger. We want to get our business back.
Coca-Cola, the world's most iconic beverage company, has found itself at the center of a growing economic storm after CEO James Quincy announced the company is grappling with serious financial difficulties. The news sent shockwaves across the corporate landscape and consumer markets alike. With its vast network of operations rooted deeply in the United States, Coca-Cola has long symbolized the strength of American enterprise. However, the announcement revealed the company's struggle to withstand a rapidly shifting economic environment, worsened by the newly instated tariffs under President Donald Trump's administration. The decision to shut down U.S. factories and shift production abroad marks a significant turning point, not only for Coca-Cola but for the entire fabric of U.S.-based manufacturing. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The financial pressure on Coca-Cola has been mounting ever since the United States dramatically altered its trade policies. Upon taking office, President Trump quickly moved to implement sweeping tariffs aimed at recalibrating America's trade relationships. With a clear intent to bolster domestic industry, the tariffs targeted key trade partners, slapping duties on imports ranging from aluminum and steel to agricultural products and consumer goods. What followed was a global wave of retaliatory tariffs from countries that were once considered stable allies and reliable trade partners. This back-and-forth escalation severely disrupted international supply chains, leaving companies like Coca-Cola caught in the crossfire. For a company whose global strategy depends on complex interlinked supply chains, the impact was immediate and deeply unsettling. The costs of raw materials such as aluminum, essential for producing soda cans, skyrocketed. Previously predictable expenses ballooned unpredictably, severely undermining the company's financial planning and long-term projections. The price volatility forced Coca-Cola into making rapid adjustments, such as revising production estimates, cutting back on marketing budgets, and reevaluating its presence in certain U.S. markets. However, these internal adjustments proved insufficient against the sheer scale of external economic pressure. Faced with mounting costs and shrinking margins, Coca-Cola began to assess the viability of its U.S.-based manufacturing operations. With retaliatory tariffs rendering American exports increasingly expensive, international sales plummeted. Once thriving markets in Europe, Asia, and Latin America became increasingly hostile to American goods, particularly those perceived as artificially expensive due to tariff-induced inflation. This steep decline in foreign demand delivered a double blow to Coca-Cola. Not only were operating costs surging domestically, but the global appetite for their products, central to their revenue, was rapidly diminishing. As the financial metrics continued to decline, internal assessments made it painfully clear. Maintaining production in the U.S. under current trade conditions was no longer sustainable. The economics simply did not add up. Running factories in a high-tariff environment increased unit costs to an uncompetitive level. Moreover, the unpredictable nature of the trade policies left no room for long-term strategic investments. With uncertainty looming over every international deal, Coca-Cola's leadership was forced into an unenviable position. They would have to shutter U.S. factories and relocate production to countries where operating costs remained feasible and access to international markets was less constrained by protectionist policies. The announcement of factory closures sent ripples across the country. Thousands of American workers were suddenly facing job insecurity, a painful byproduct of decisions made far beyond the walls of their factories. In cities and towns where Coca-Cola facilities served as economic pillars, communities braced for the inevitable consequences. Local businesses that relied on the presence of Coca-Cola employees, from diners to supply shops, began to feel the weight of an uncertain future. While critics pointed fingers at corporate strategy, it was evident that the heart of the issue was systemic and deeply tied to the broader trade conflict initiated by the U.S. government. Coca-Cola's decision to move production abroad was not born out of preference but of necessity. The company, known for its deep-rooted American identity, faced a paradox. Staying loyal to domestic operations would mean endangering the company's global competitiveness and ultimately its survival. By contrast, shifting abroad promised lower production costs and access to more favorable trade environments, albeit at a substantial cost to its American workforce and its image as a symbol of U.S. entrepreneurship. As more details emerged, it became clear that this move wasn't isolated. Coca-Cola had begun negotiations with governments and commercial partners in countries where economic and trade policies were more stable. Regions in Southeast Asia, parts of Eastern Europe, and even Africa became prime candidates for new production hubs. These areas not only offered reduced manufacturing costs.
Hi guys, this is Tina and you're welcome back to the channel. So can you believe this, guys? Coca-Cola, one of the biggest names in the world, is shutting down its factory in Florida, and nearly 200 workers are being shown the door. Families who depended on these jobs for years are suddenly left with nothing. And it's not just Coca-Cola. Layoffs are sweeping across the US, from coffee shops to car companies, but this Florida shutdown hits hard. It hits really hard because it's the end of an entire factory. Well, let's look at other people's reactions to this.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, this isn't good. America's biggest private company, Cargill, is getting ready to lay off over 5% of its workforce. Let me tell you why this is not good. First, Cargill is America's largest privately held company. It is also the world's largest agricultural commodities trader. AKA, if things aren't going good with agriculture, things aren't going good for them. But now grocery prices are dropping. On top of that, the number of U.S. cattle is down, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Are we starting to get it? Cargill is invested to be one of the largest beef processors in North America. Bloomberg reported earlier this year that the famously tight-lipped behemoth's profits had fallen to $2.48 billion in the fiscal year ending in May. If $2.48 billion is bad, I'd love to know what's good. Now here's the problem. Cargill has more than 160,000 employees, and there's going to be an estimated 8,000 cuts. Then they give you this mumbo jumbo. As we look to the future, we have laid out a clear plan to evolve and strengthen our portfolio to take advantage of compelling trends in front of us, maximizing our competitive.
The restaurant, it went from 24/7 to 2 shifts to 1 shift to a self-service buffet. Last November we were 24/7. February we went down to the 2 shifts, and then a couple of months later we went down to the 1 shift, and then as of today we're down to the buffet shift, self-service buffet, no more service. As of yesterday, the servers were all laid off. Because of our union contract, I do have priority hiring at my hotel. So I'm hopeful to have a job, hopefully by the end of the week because of that. But it's going to be a less paying job, so I'm going to have to see where I can cut some stuff. So it's scary.
$20 million plant closing in Northampton, Massachusetts, as Coca-Cola is going to lay off 300 workers there. Now, this plant was slated for closure in 2001, and they kept talking about it, putting it off. But really what Coca-Cola is looking to do here is they're looking to outsource the bottling of their products, which I think is an absolutely terrible idea. I'm not sure if they're outsourcing it to another company within the United States or they're outsourcing it outside the United States. However, the general trend in the beverage industry is that you have other companies do the bottling and stuff with the raw materials. So I think anytime you get to the point where you're handing off big pieces of your production to other companies and then expecting the quality control to stay in place, expecting everything to be the same, and then when it's not, then you have to have this revelation, even though you had a couple of good quarters of growth, profitability, all this type of stuff for companies, they're like, oh crap, we really shouldn't have done that. Other people don't care about our quality control measures that we've had in place for 100 years. And then you have to go back and they'll have to build another plant and do it internally again. This has happened with so many companies, happened with car companies, food companies, beverage companies. They always look at a cheap fix for what they can do right now to save money. They have a couple good quarters, a couple good years. Something really bad happens. They go back and they're like, oh, well, that was their fault. We'll go back and do this internally now because we'll be the responsible ones. Just skip that whole step. Leave people with their jobs in Massachusetts. Keep the plant there and keep quality control of your old standards. I'm tired of companies sacrificing quality just to make a few bucks. Ultimately, it never works out for them, and they always look foolish in the public eye. So I wish companies would just skip this step and just be ethical and do the right thing from the front. I'm disappointed in Coca-Cola for this one.
So guys, this is more than just losing a paycheck. This is about homes, about bills and future being torn apart. Coca-Cola built its name on refreshing the world, but right now it's leaving workers high and dry. No refreshment again. What do you think, guys? Is this just business or is it heartless? Drop your thoughts below because America is watching. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Do well to like, share and of course subscribe to support the channel. Till next time, bye!